And we are back. It is the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We are moving and grooving, rocking and rolling, and we are streaming on Rumble, and we are streaming on X, and we are streaming on YouTube, and we are streaming on the mothership, WYAB.com. So if you can't pick up the 50,000 watt blowtorch, you can always tune in, click like, share, and subscribe to the stream. That would be greatly appreciated. The number, if you want to be part of the show today, 601-879-0002. The text line is already open, 601-879-5060. I do have to say that the texts yesterday were legit and actually drove the show prep for today. And I'm always grateful and thankful to you texters, and try to reach out to as many of you as I can. Look, no matter how many texts I get, no matter how many phone calls I get, the mission here at the Andrew Gosser Show, it's standard. We are here to equip the saints. Who are the saints? Y'all are the saints. And you know what we do here at the Andrew Gosser Show? We encourage people. We encourage people to do the things that maybe they wouldn't otherwise necessarily do. Therefore, encourage one another and build one another up, just as you are already doing. And we're doing that. And I'll tell you what, listen to the General Bob Show last hour. That's going to be a great addition to the WYAB family of programming. And Bob, we're grateful to have you here. Looking forward to seeing all the great stuff that you're going to do. It's definitely adding to the show and the program, and we're grateful for you. And before we get into the show, I did talk about the text yesterday, but I also received a phone call from Brother Keith, and he's an avid listener, not just of my show, but of Clay's show, Kim's show. I was out there, and it's really great to see how people connect through the show and how the show has grown. And I'm just thankful from the bottom of my heart, everybody who's out there listening, who tunes in on the streams every day, likes, shares, and subscribes, going out there and building this thing together. It's great. We're having a positive impact in Mississippi, and that's what we want to do. It's so easy to tear someone else down, blow out someone's candle, but to sit there and amplify and build everything up, that's what I'm talking about. And I guess the best place to start is Facebook yesterday, because I saw a really good friend of mine, Brother John, talking about how the state of Mississippi is going after this mail-in voting fraud, this ballot initiative that every country outside of the United States of America has adopted and then renounced. There is no other country in the world that has mail-in voting. Why? Because it is statistically proven that it increases the chance of fraud and voter irregularity. And you don't have to look any further than Fulton County, Georgia, or Maricopa County, Arizona, Cook County, Illinois. The list goes on and on. We are going after this mail-in voting. And who's doing it? The Mississippi GOP. Specifically, you know who's doing it? The Hinds County GOP. I saw a lot of really good conservatives who I consider good friends, and they were happy about this, but they were ripping the GOP. And I don't think that a lot of conservatives realized what happened here with this. And I'm not spilling any inside baseball. I'm not blowing anything up or divulging any secrets. But a lot of people were upset with the Mississippi mail-in voting bill that was passed. And the truth of the matter is we could have gotten another bill passed just to revoke it. But if we would have revoked it just here in Mississippi, now think about this. That means that Mississippi would have fixed itself, but Illinois is still broken. California is still broken. Georgia is still broken. New York's still broken. Everywhere is Washington State, Oregon. They're all still broken. By not fixing this legislatively and by taking this to court through the federal process, we are now having this issue heard before the United States Supreme Court. This is wonderful news. Think about this. When we prevail in the Supreme Court, the lawsuit that stemmed in Mississippi will have a blanket effect on the United States, because now you won't be able to do the mail-in voting in Illinois or California or Arizona or Georgia or Pennsylvania or New York or Illinois. Thank you, 14th Amendment. And we will have stopped this nationwide should we prevail. And I truly understand the very conservative people out there who don't like everything that we do in the GOP, in the Mississippi GOP, and I'm nothing special, right? I'm just on the executive committee. I show up to every meeting, no matter how I'm feeling. Spencer, I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna support the team. But we get so disenfranchised because of the school choice bill or the air seating bill or the raw milk bill, and we just throw the whole baby out with the bathwater. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleading with you. I'm making a real plea with you here to sit there and say, "Yes, hold the GOP accountable in Mississippi for the things we do wrong." But sitting there complaining about the going to the Supreme Court to get this changed, I genuinely feel like, some of y'all didn't necessarily have the full picture. And that doesn't damage the Mississippi GOP because there is a group of 65% people out there who show up to the poll, and they're gonna pull the plug for the Republican Party no matter what. Vote red till better off dead than not to vote red, whatever the saying is. But to those of us in the middle who were trying to build the base, it's a lot easier to say, "This is why we did what we did. This is why we took the Supreme Court route." And this isn't the first time that we've done this either. If you think about the abortion bill, if you think about the vaccination bill, the MPVR legislation, I think about that now and how we had to sue the state to get what we wanted. It's actually brilliant strategy. And do I wish we would take more legislative route in Mississippi? Yes, yes, I do, especially with the leaders that we have. And say what you want about Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann. Say what you want about Speaker of the House Jason White. They do move stuff through. And if we imagine if we had them on our side on a lot more of these conservative issues than not. People are complaining, about what's going on inside the Mississippi GOP, and I'm just here to say that there are good things happening. Let's take a phone call. We're already off and running. Go ahead, you're on the air. Well, I think they call that stage fright. You were right there. All you had to do was say hello. Wasn't a big deal. We're just two grown-ups having a conversation over the radio for everybody else in Mississippi to hear. Nothing to worry about. It's all fun and games until the light goes green, and then all of a sudden, people are like, "Whoop, whoop, whoop." It's not a big deal. What's really interesting about this voter mail-in lawsuit that's going on inside Washington, D.C. right now is even my Democrat friends in Terry, and I'm very grateful for them because they listen to the show. They'll never call in, but they listen, and they say, "Andrew, you are off the reservation on this. You're definitely not going down the right way." When it comes to this voter mail-in ballot stuff, they are completely behind it. This is a 80-20 issue. This issue also plays right into the Save America Act. it's running in tandem. It's putting more pressure on, frankly, the Democrat Party to approve it. And we've got sound that I can go and pick off and play of, Chuck Schumer saying that this is Jim Crow 2.0. We can go get all the hate radio sound clips and just get everybody mad and angry, or we can talk about the great things that we're doing. And I when I have to go negative and, God forbid, doom scroll and preach on that kind of stuff, I will. But man, why not? Why not talk about the good stuff? Why not talk about the victory? It's in our personal lives too. We have victories all over the place. The Sweet Toots had her first night on the job at age 17. I started working at age 8. She started working at age 17. Child labor laws. Some people say they're a good thing, and they did do a lot of good, but I think it also hurt a lot of people as well. That work ethic coming in late. I'm gonna celebrate that victory. She had a good time, not gonna say where she's working, not to say what she's gonna do. Maybe they could sponsor the program. We'll talk. Hey, that's a great idea. If you wanna sponsor the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB, send a text or give the off studio a call. We'll hook you up, and we'll get you hooked right up. But I'm not gonna say where she's working. I don't want any creepers out there. There's plenty of creepers out there. We heard about it in the news. But the focus on the positive things, one step at a time. So I'm gonna shout out some people too that come some names are gonna come out of my mouth that are gonna make some people say, "Yep, I like that person," or "Nope, I don't like it." Long history, never gonna agree with anything he says just because that's the way it is. But shout out to Spencer Ritchie for taking this up for the Mississippi GOP. Shout out to GOP chairman Mike Hurst for making sure that this was going along the right way. And shout out to Pete Perry, who put thought up and was the basic architect of this whole idea. And that is why those 3 gentlemen right there are the reason why you are having mail-in voting in front of the United States Supreme Court, Hinds County, Mississippi. I'm telling y'all, we get all up in our inner circles, and I'm not gonna mention any other names, and there is definite disagreement to be had, and there's correction that needs to be had. But man, it's like when you're potty training your dog to go outside, and they finally go outside, and they do what they need to do outside, and you come and you yell at them because they took too long to do it. My goodness, it's so much easier to be positive in life than to be negative. But that's just me. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYB. We're going to take our first break. We'll be right back. Yeah. We are back at the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. You know, the text conversations I had with the listeners between yesterday and today have been awesome. And I've got this one unknown texter who's always quoting me Getter news feeds. I can tell that this person has been someone who is on the outside looking in, and they sent me a Getter text from someone named Global Pulse, and it just said breaking: Supreme Court set to strike down extended mail-in balloting deadlines after Election Day. And it's really saying Getter. And I said, "Yep, thank you to Hinds County and the Mississippi GOP." And they responded with, between abortion and this issue right here, the GOP is really doing great stuff. And that's where I want to take it. How great would it be if this person was on the executive committee in a county, actively promoting bringing up the youth, like Blake Bartlam, like Chris Tapia, like others who are out there doing things at an incredibly early age. We need to promote them. We need to figure out, how can we empower these people? How can Andrew Gosser empower you to be more active in your local community? That gets me excited. That gets me fired up. Then I've got this other texter, and we were talking about, in this other texter and I, we have a love-hate relationship. I think that's fair to say. And we'll try to see if this caller can get back. Go ahead, you're on the air.
I had a question about the voter fraud or mail-in ballots and how that relates to voter fraud.
Yes, sir.
Military people will still be able to mail in ballots, right?
Yes, sir. There are very specific exceptions for mail-in balloting.
Okay.
Our veterans overseas will have it. Those who you'll still have the option to vote early at like the clerk's office. So if you're going to go on a vacation, getting married, you have some type
hmm
of legitimate business excuse not to be there on election day, you're going to be able to go ahead and mail in vote. There's a lot of misinformation, sir. There's a lot of disinformation saying that it's going to take away the military's right to vote, take away elderly right to vote. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, well, I was just checking just to see where we were on that.
Yep.
I have one other question.
Mm-hmm.
As far as mail-in ballots and fraud, how many people have been prosecuted for mail-in ballots that were deemed to be fraudulent? I mean, is there a lot, is there 10, 15% of mail-in ballots that were fraudulent, and where are these prosecutions? Because my thing is this, and I guess I'm just average Joe citizen.
Yep.
I don't like a lot of subterfuge and conflation of the issues. I like facts.
Yes,
if we're saying there's a voter fraud, that there are a lot of illegals voting, then where are the prosecutions? And where's the data? Just give me the facts. I don't want the opinions. I need facts. I need to see court cases and things of that nature, because for me, I want fair elections, but I also don't want you to waste my time and get me sidetracked from what's important, because you're running, no matter who's in charge, we're running a $40 trillion deficit.
That's a
and
fact.
I'm sitting here and people telling me, okay, if we get fair elections at the federal level and we got all these IDs and this is going to cut down on fraud.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at the end of the day, who's going to reduce the deficit? Because the same bums that are voting in office, whether they're Democrat or Republican, I see the same trash. My taxes are high.
Mm-hmm.
The deficit's high.
Preach.
Cost of living is high. And I'm sitting here and you want me to really pay attention to whether it's a mail-in ballot or whether it's voter ID? Folks, all these bums need to be voted out. And we don't have a legitimate third party, and there's a reason for that. But at the end of the day, keep your eye on the prize. These bums are running up the deficit. They're spending our money like drunk sailors, and nothing against sailors.
They earn their money. They earn their money, brother.
That's right. At the end of the day, we got to start paying attention and quit letting these folks confuse us. and conflate the issue. The issue is cost of living, affordability, and the deficit. And if we get the deficit down, a lot of us will live a lot better. So, I mean, I don't want voter fraud, but we got to pay attention to what's important.
So let me try to answer your question. I hope you listen to the show often. You've heard about my very strong complaints about attorney generals, state attorney generals, Pam Bondi being very ineffective with prosecutions. The last prosecution of voter fraud in Mississippi was down in Gulfport with that lady who was ballot harvesting, and it was just last month.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't pull it up right now, but I will during the break, and I'll report on that. But it was with the Gulfport mayoral race. They brought in people from outside the state, specifically Georgia, to try to ballot harvest. So that's one example of it. The other examples I would point to where we've been told that there was no ballot harvesting and voter fraud, but clearly there has been, was in Fulton County, Georgia, and Maricopa County, Arizona. And those are working through the court system now. So those are examples that I can point to you off the top of my nugget. I think you bring up such a valid point, sir, such a valid point. How come our prosecutors aren't prosecuting? The two biggest issues for me, the first one is our election integrity, because if we don't have secure elections, then we're all screwed, because the like you said, the spending's just going to go out of control. And if we don't protect our children, who are our most vital asset, and I'm just saying that they'll go after all these different small crimes, but when it comes to the worst of the worst, Tim Tebow has a list of over 516,000 people participating in child pornography, and he testified before Congress, and less than 1% are under active investigation. When you say, where are the prosecutions, dude? Let's march, man. Let's march on Jackson and say, where is our Attorney General Lynn Fitch when it comes to this? Where are our county prosecutors when it comes to this? That's where we need to be. When it comes to spending, sir, I'm with you. I don't know how that's going to get fixed, because I just look at what's happening in the world, and I see that there's a real shift happening. And you can talk about it spiritually, you can talk about it geopolitically, you can say whatever you want. All I know is that there are people who are trying to fundamentally change this country in a way that's not good, in my opinion. And I'll give you the last word, my friend.
Well, biblically, the Bible says the borrower is slave to the lender. And who's the lender?
Yep.
For the United States. Who is the lender? And when you follow the money, then you realize what's really going on.
Man, you quoted some Deuteronomy. That is really good, my friend. I really appreciate the phone call and the discussion today. I hope you call back again. Hey, I didn't get your name. Can I get your name real quick? First name only. John, I appreciate the phone call. That was Brother John, ladies and gentlemen. Did he not sound cogent? Did he not sound like he knew the issues? I'm not sure John and I will agree on everything every time, but he's right. Follow the money. Everybody's talking about Republican, and then I get bombed with AIPAC. And we are right to be concerned about what's happening in the Middle East, and we are right to be concerned about our budget. But just, this is my opinion. Number one, we're going to go back to rule 2 of politics: control what you can control. I can't control what Pam Bondi does, but I can have a say on what Lynn Finch is doing. And look at how, again, not to pile on negatively, but it is what it is. The opioid task force is getting reevaluated because they're not spending the money the way they're supposed to. We've only got one successful prosecution in the state of Mississippi, as far as I can see. And that was with the Gulfport mayoral's race, Brother John. And that was May 28th, 2025. Shout out to the crew who texted that in while we were talking. These are the things where we got to control what we can control. And we need more people who are civically minded, who agree on the main things, and we can have some disagreements on other things. But until we have this civil discourse and we lift each other up and encourage each other. Again, and if you don't agree with Brother John on that, I encourage you to call in and tell me why he's wrong. I really do, because I know what I'm bringing into my circle of friends, and I know that there are some other friends who are being kinda pushed to the outskirts, if you will, and the main reason that they're on the outskirts is not because 'cause they're not good people or anything, but they're just so negative all the time, and man, someone like me, I just I can't dwell on the negative. It's not healthy. It's not healthy, you can have the 83 good things and there's the one bad thing, and people are gonna just dwell on that one bad thing, and that's not good. That doesn't mean that you don't correct the one bad thing, but you don't dwell on it. You are tuned into the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We're gonna take our next break. We will be right back. And we are back here at the Andrew Gosser Show, moving and grooving, rocking and rolling. Look, if you want to be part of the program, it's easy. 601-879-0002. Text line is open, 601-879-5060. Uh, Another topic that I wanted to talk about, I have talked about this in the past, but uh, when my friend who I normally, we have this love hate on off type of relationship. Uh, we were talking about reading books and how important it is to read paper and not digital. And I know that's harder and harder to do in 2026. But I did go to this leadership conference this past weekend, and it was something that was subtly hinted at. We talked out on the radio, and this gentleman and I ended up having a whole text conversation. And he just started off by saying, "Is reading books imperative?" Which to I responded to, absolutely yes. Scientists have proven that your brain acts differently when it reads books over digital. What about just reading? What about just reading a physical book? Yes, physical books are superior. And I'm if you go to my X account, I've linked 2 studies for that. And I just want to briefly talk about the studies because I want you to understand that when I put something out like this, I want to encourage you to go read more books. Your reading list might be different than mine. Mine obviously has very spiritual connotations. Read the Bible. I read a lot of Christian books. I also read Star Wars, especially Timothy Zahn. I love his stuff. I read Jonathan Cahn. I read a lot of pastors in our affiliation of churches, NRP. There's a lot of pastors who will write books on different things, whether it be how to improve your marriage, how to be a better leader, how to speak. I've been an instructor since I was 23 years old, and I've really been teaching since I was 20. No, 20 years old. 20 years old is when the Navy first got me fired up on teaching and instructing. They sent me to instructor school when I was 21, I think, and I ended up teaching there, and so public speaking for me has always been really simple. And then when I got to the Air Force, I flew and did a combat tour and did all that craziness. And what did they do? They sent me to the Air Force instructor school, where I ultimately culminated in chief of training and development. I should write a book. Trying to. It's hard one-handed. But the point I'm trying to say here is that we are all teachers. We are all mentors. We are all doing stuff. And when I look back upon my career, I was always having to read Air Force instructions on paper or Navy instructions on paper. And it just came to the point to where when you are reading on paper, you're forcing your brain to work differently. And we need to get our brains working because the common sense factor in America today is next to nil. It's next to zero because there's not a lot of people with common sense out there. I've got all sorts of TikToks that say that. And the first study that I want to talk about, reading from paper compared to screens, a systematic review and meta-analysis. And I can get into all the math and everything, but I'll just read the conclusions of this. Readers may be more efficient and aware of their performance when reading from paper compared to screens. And in the abstract, they say that there's a small change. I disagree with the small change because when you think about brain function, if you just have a 1 or 2% change in your brain function, it has an enormous effect on you physically, mentally, your ability to speak. And look at people who have strokes, and they have to teach themselves to walk again, teach themselves to speak again, to be able to feed themselves. I mean, it's a real big thing. So when you're all of a sudden losing 1 or 2% of your reading comprehension skills, that's taking you from like a 22-year-old bachelor college student down to a seventh grader. just that little bit of loss of reading comprehension. How many people from Hinds County are graduating high school and then going to Hinds Community College and having to learn how to do English all over again, or having to take math all over again because they can't test out into college level stuff? But I'm going to college. If you go to my X account, you'll see this is, I linked the 2 studies. The first one's from the United Kingdom Literacy Association, which is what I just read from. And then this is from the other one that I research journal that I linked was the Oklahoma Educational Journal. Turning the Page: What Research Indicates About Print versus Digital Reading. And it just goes through here and it says, researchers have shown that younger readers who frequently enhance their literary skills and routinely reading motivates readers to pursue more challenging texts over time. You start off with Spot Can Run, and next thing you know, you're reading big level stuff. This dynamic relationship among literacy skills, engagement, and the language learning is sometimes referred to as the virtuous circle of reading. And it's true. When you start learning how to read, we're all individuals, right? We all have our own different personalities. I read so many books on regenerative farming. I could write a master's paper on it. Joel Salatin, Greg Judy, if you know, you know. And our sheep are brought up that way. I didn't You can sit there and watch the YouTube videos and they're cool because of the video editing, the sound, and it's easier for you to do. It's easier to sit there and lay on your back with a bucket of popcorn watching Greg Judy move cattle than it is to sit there and actively read a book and focus on it. Your mind just works in a completely different way. And I just feel that this is really important when it comes to our education. Let's take another phone call here. Go ahead, sir. You're on the air.
Good morning, my brother. How are you?
Brother Richard, I am doing well. I am doing well.
Man, I'm happy. You're making me have flashbacks when my dad tried to make me read Treasure Island and The Coming Fury and Gulliver's Travels, and I wanted to read Spider-Man comic books.
Yep.
But thankfully, my mom said, "Hey, he's reading. Leave him alone." And boy, I read some comic books. Let me tell you what, I didn't miss an issue of Spider-Man. I got them all.
Did you end up ever reading Treasure Island?
I read parts of it because it was, like I say, it was here, you got to read this, and then of course some of it you got in school, and so bit by bit I got the entire story. But The Coming Fury was about the Civil War.
Yep.
And that was a tough read, but he rode me pretty hard to read those things. But I digress, as Rush Limbaugh used to say.
Yep.
The Save America Act. What are they jacking around for? They want to make this a midterm issue. I mean, let's get this thing done. What are we waiting on?
You know, Brother Richard, we spoke about it. As far as I know, we're the only people who have talked about how this only needs 50 plus the vice president to pass because it was sent via message from Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, and it gets a privileged resolution. What I think it's showing is that John Thune can't whip the votes to get 50. And he knows that if it comes out and they have to vote, there's going to be people like Mitch McConnell, Lisa Murkowski, Susan Collins, and others who are not going to vote for it. Now, I do think there is a slim chance that John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, who is yet to really break ranks with the Democrats, could switch sides and vote for it. But we'll have to wait and see on that. But again, it's making those of us, and making my job a lot harder when I'm trying to build and grow the party to get people to come into the party to be active locally. And we can't have any positive impact in Washington, D.C. Let me ask you this real quick. Did you see how Cindy Hyde-Smith came out on Fox News completely for this?
No, I did not. Inform me.
Yeah, she actually did. She was one of the few U.S. senators who actually came out and said, let's get this done. And she's been, I don't put her on Mike Lee level, who's doing like, daily updates on it. But she has come out really well for it, and people are saying, "Oh, you're just carrying water for the Republicans." Look, you can only what my eyes see is what my eyes see, right? I can go back and I can point back to every time when Trump was putting forth nominees: Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth, dare I say her name, Pam Bondi, Cindy Hyde Smith was right out there in front before she was even asked to support him. She was out there supporting, and so for me, I'm okay with that. I realize that she hasn't authored a major bill since she's been in the Senate, but these are the things that are important to me, and so that's what I point out, you know?
Well, from the perspective of 30,000 feet, all of Trump's executive orders can be and will be reversed if a Democrat gets in the office again.
Facts.
Legislation that passes both bodies is going to be solid and cannot be overturned without some type of similar legislation. Outside the big beautiful bill, this has to get done because let's face it, you've got illegals voting in Republican and Democratic districts, and this has to stop. If we don't get this done, I mean, it's going to be a continual problem. And like I say, all of his executive orders, as effective and as good as they are, this will have some teeth that can actually be monitored and enforced. So we, I don't know what Boone's doing up there, but Trump needs to pick up the phone and curl some people's hair because this has got to get passed. Got to get passed.
I agree with you. Brother Richard, I'm up against a hard break. I got to bounce.
All right, brother. Have a good one.
Take care, everybody. That was Brother Richard. Andrew Gosser Show, 103.9 WYAB. We're going to take our last break of the first hour. We'll be right back. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Welcome to the Andrew Gosser Show, 1039 WYAB. Brother Steve checking in from X says, why don't you start a book club and suggest books that you are reading? Kind of like Oprah, the Gosser's Book Club. That would be kind of good. Andrew Gosser Book Club, something like that. That'd be pretty awesome. I'd be willing to do that if there were enough people out there who said they're going to read the same book I was reading, and we could like discuss it. That would be really cool. That's a great idea, and this audience is absolutely phenomenal. And it's not just like people are checking in saying, "Hey, what's up?" We're getting plenty of that, but we're getting a lot of thoughtful stuff too. An unknown texter says, "My mom has Alzheimer's, so I've been watching doctors on YouTube, reading, writing, and extreme weight resistance are some of the best things you can do for your brain, quote unquote, health. The muscle that produces a chemical that goes to the brain and enhances its defense against cognitive decline." Look, reading books, um, not only does it do all those things that the texter said, but it improves your vocabulary. There are words that you would have never used, all of a sudden you're coming across, and they're not just the regular words that are in a regular vocabulary book, and you're just sitting there putting on a flashcard to remember it for the ACT, the ASVAB, or the AFOQT. You're having the application of what you're learning. The application is so critical. And I'm just a big believer in books. And that doesn't say that, I don't like vegging out and watching The Chosen or watching Pastor Vlad on YouTube. We watch a lot of YouTube. We watch people other than spiritual stuff on YouTube too. But I'll tell you what, the best example for a voracious reader is my wife, the Sweet Bee. You look at her library. I'm not exaggerating when I say she's got a $20,000 library sitting in the front of our house. She's getting 2 or 3 books a week, and I'm barely being able to keep up. I'm like, "Sweet Pea, whoa, what the heck's going on?" Not only is she a very voracious reader, but she's a very accomplished writer too. And, people she gets so embarrassed when I say this, but it's true. We'll even play the Sweet Bee music on the way out to the top of the hour. When I say that she is the second smartest person on earth that I've ever met, it's true. She's an accomplished writer, incredible reader, incredible wife, incredible shepherd, and she's always pushing us along to go do bigger and better stuff. So if I can take some of what she's doing for our family and share it on all to you, get out there and start reading some books. In Spider-Man comics, Richard, we gotta up our game a little bit. Meaningful stuff, whether that be farming, agriculture, science. Let's do it, man. Let's do it. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 1039 WYAB. We'll be right back. Yes, yes, you are. You're tuned back into the second hour of the Andrew Gosser Show, and today is Tuesday, and we are streaming on Rumble. We are streaming on X. We are streaming on YouTube. We are streaming at WYAB.com, the mothership. So if you can't pick up our 50,000 watt blowtorch of a signal that is WYAB, like, share, and subscribe to one of our live streams. We'd appreciate that. You should also follow me on X at Andrew Gosser, AndrewGasser. And the mission here at the Andrew Gosser Show is standard. We are here to equip the saints. Who are the saints? Y'all are the saints. And, the whole first hour, it was all about encouraging one another and building one another up, just like we're already doing. And I was actually going to say some nice things about CBS News. But after listening to this Lyndon Kenyon talk about the Save America Act and completely pitch a slighted, left-leaning, biased report on the Save America Act and Donald Trump voting by mail, bin them. Bin CBS News. I hope they crash and burn on the radio. I'm glad they're going. It's crappy reporting by like this person, Lyndon Kenyon. I almost really said something really bad. Is President Trump going to be in Florida on the Tuesday to vote? Or is he going to be in a different state on his job executing the offices of the President of the United States of America, the duties of the President of the United States of America? Of course he's going to vote by mail. And this just further goes and proves the conservative point of view on this. Democrats just sit there and get you all motivated and fired up on fake news. Just like I was talking with Brother John. If you've got a legitimate reason not to be in the state on election day, you can vote by mail or you can absentee vote. You can do all sorts of different things. I don't live in Florida. I don't know all the Florida rules. I live in Mississippi. I know the Mississippi rules. If I know I'm gonna be out of town, I can vote by mail. I also know that it's a lot easier for me to go in and just vote at Zach Wallace's office if I've got to vote if I can't vote on election day. I can go and vote early. There are all sorts of exemptions. One, if you are disabled and you can prove you're disabled, you can vote early. You can vote by mail. You can vote curbside. What this is stopping, and let me be very specific, and Brother John, I didn't tell you this, but I know you're out there listening, so put this in your quiver of arrows. What this stops is from people just requesting vote by mail ballots and then just getting them sent out blatantly, like they do in California, like they do in Oregon, like they do in Washington, like they do in Minnesota, like they do in Illinois, like they do in New York, and a bunch of other blue states. When you send out hundreds of thousands, if not millions of mail-in ballots, and then they're all just sitting out there outstanding, what the hell do you think's gonna happen? President Trump's in the lead, 2:00 in the morning. "Oh, we're stopping the voting. You gotta figure out how many votes we gotta mysteriously manufacture." And then all of a sudden, Trump got insurmountable lead, and all of a sudden, go look at the 2020 voter spikes at 3 or 4 AM. They're out there. Nah, bun CNN radio news. As far as I'm concerned, they can't get rid of her quick enough. That being said, you know what I did do last night? I sat down and actually watched some 60 Minutes reports. I watched one on the shipbuilding crisis in America right now. It was like a 16-minute documentary. It was actually good journalism. They went to South Korea. They went to the Philadelphia shipyard. They actually pointed out how shipbuilding in America is absolutely crumbling. Do you know that the South Koreans can build submarines faster than the United States of America? And I know some submariners, and some of our Los Angeles class attack subs, they are old, ladies and gentlemen. They're tired. They need to be retired. But we can't pump them out quick enough. You know that the country of South Korea can? The company that in South Korea wants to actually expand Philadelphia shipyard and start cranking out more subs and more ships. And President Trump has called this a national emergency. So that's actually happening. And great on that info, babe, for going out there, going to South Korea, checking out the innovation there, and just exposing how far behind the United States is in shipbuilding. And there are some crazy rules out there, rules I didn't even know about, rules you don't even know about. How many of you know about the Jones Act, where if you're shipping any goods from a state inside the United States to another state inside the United States, the ship has to be American. And if it's not American, you can't do it. This is why we have natural gas shortages in New England. We are the number one exporter of liquid natural gas in the world, and we can't ship our own natural gas from where we're pumping it out of the ground to New England because we don't have any American-built ships to do it. Make it make sense. I think John is right. We need a clean slate. If you are an incumbent legislator in Washington, D.C., you should just automatically be finish your term after 2026 and you're done. Get new blood in there. No one is in their right mind can't tell us that Joe Biden wasn't mentally out of his game when he left the office. And no one can tell me now that Mitch McConnell isn't mentally out of his game while he's still in the Senate. Who's holding the Save America Act hostage? Who's holding our TSA officers hostage? Oh, and speaking of that, again, CBS News, finding quotes. I don't think the TSA agents would know what to do if there was something broke out in the airport. Dude, that is a federal law enforcement officer. I'm pretty sure physics works the same inside an airport as it does outside of the airport. And yes, you wanna know what? They are gonna have their hands not in their pockets, they're gonna have them in their vest hanging there, ready to go at a moment's notice. They're not sitting there trying to be bad and bold. They're trying to do something called de-escalate the situation, providing a presence without being a menace. It's kinda nice, isn't it? It's everything that you didn't see on CBS News or hear on CBS Radio. Man, I'm fired up over that. That just launches me to the moon. We watched another CNN documentary too on what's happening with the oil in Iran and how they funded Hamas, Hezbollah, Islamic Jihad. I don't know if you guys heard, but Lebanon just kicked out all the Iranian diplomats. Lebanon, after being used by Iran for over 50 years to foment hate against the United States and Israel, finally kicking them out of the country. Good. I wish America could remember the '80s, and could remember its past. I'm sure the old timers who remembered Pearl Harbor wish that we remembered Pearl Harbor so that we didn't have to have a 9/11. Now our kids think the PLO is something good when they don't even remember the Al-Aqsa Martyr Brigades. How many of you remember the Al-Aqsa Martyr Brigades? I do. I remember when you would actually see the explosions in the aftermath on TV. The warfare, the Operation Mockingbird garbage that's going on through the mainstream media is terrible, and we have to get a hold of it. That's not to say that when things goes down in the South that we don't report on it and talk about it. But the drum, it's like those kooky protesters out there who sit there with the drum and the bullhorns and the chants, and they've got the IQ of a 3rd grader. But they chant and they march and they act. And it just seems like our mainstream media is taking us down that battle, and I don't want that. I wanted to be positive. This whole first segment was, truthfully, it was going to be about leadership and positive things that we can do, and things that you probably already have in your brain, and were taught, or at least exposed to, and then CBS has to come in and gum it all up. I'll tell you what, we're going to take a little bit of an early break. We're going to reset, and then we'll come at this again. We'll talk about some other stuff. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We'll be right back. Yeah, welcome back to the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9 WYAB. First segment got hijacked by good old CBS, and I didn't even throw in the Mika Brzezinski lunacy on MS Now/BS Always. I mean, there's a reason that those channels are going away. It's not that they can't hold an audience; it's that they're lying so darn much that people just don't tune into them anymore. Of course, if that is your life's belief, if what you truly believe is what the left is peddling, well, then you might tune into it. But those channels wouldn't be on the air if it wasn't for Pfizer and Big Pharma and Big Ag. But there are some people out there who might be wondering, Andy, you're always talking about building people up and everything. What are some things that you can do? Well, if you're watching the live stream right now, you can see I got my notes from this weekend. And I just don't want to sit there and go to one of these conferences and be a bump on a log, sit in some lectures and never think about it or work on it again. I'm one of those people. I don't know if you're one of those people, but I'm one of those people that I've got to do something 3, 4, 5, 6 times to make sure that I get it right. And, there are so many great leaders out there for you to get behind and start learning from. Some might like Simon Sinek, Start With Why, great book. That's definitely something some of y'all should read. A lot of you people like Bob Goff, like Pastor Ron said, he's a big Bob Goff believer. And Bob Goff, this is true. I want you to think about this. Don't close your eyes unless you can. But if you can close your eyes or at least pay attention to this and see if this doesn't make sense to you. We will become in our lives whoever the people who love us the most say we are. Bob Goff. What are you? What does your spouse say that you are? Because that's what you are. If you ask the sweet pea, she would say, I'm an incredibly positive type of person. I will always look for the light. I'll always try to be on the optimistic side of things. Now, if I am pessimistic about something, you better take me very seriously because it's not too often that I'm that pessimistic. So, what are we at WYB? What are you? And one of the things that they said is we are accepting of everybody. Now, it doesn't mean we accept their behavior or their life choices, but we are accepting of them, right? Because people might be coming into your organization who have never been in your type of culture before. They don't understand your business culture, your work culture, your corporate culture, and you've got to lead them. And it's a fact. They're going to be coming in people with piercings and tattoos, and you can't judge on that. You don't know the walk that they've had. And for me, it was a really big eye opener because I've thought about that. And I know some of you have been put in that situation as well, where all of a sudden someone walks through the door, new hire, and you're like, what am I getting? And it turns out they're a great person and they just want the opportunity, probably a lot like you did. Man, if I just had the opportunity to go ahead and do something, if I just had my foot in the door here at Sanderson's, if I just had my foot in the door here at Canadian National, CK or KCCK or P or whatever the heck it is now, they merged. That's something else I read about is the history of railroading in America. I know that sounds silly and stupid, but hey, we all have our interests, right? So we're accepting of everybody. It doesn't mean you accept the behavior. It doesn't mean you accept what they did in the past, but they're moving on from it. And we got to do that as leaders, especially politically. There are people who voted against us and all of a sudden they make a turnaround. It doesn't mean that we like their votes in the past, but we accept that they're voting for us in the Save America Act, and we take it. Appreciate everybody. Not everybody brings the same skills to the table, man. There's some people who can sit there and do web design and do great PowerPoint presentations, build everything up for you, but you do not want them giving the presentation itself. They're not a public speaker. It's just not who in their DNA. Texter just texted, "This is really helping me. I feel like I'm at a leadership seminar." Well, it's kinda is. This is more geared towards church leadership, but it applies to business too. It applies to the military too. Man, I think going back to boot camp as a young 17-year-old, I enlisted when I was 16, turned 17, and went to boot camp. When I showed up to boot camp, I'll tell you what, there were a lot of people with a lot of life skills. I was the youngest one in my company. The youngest one. And I'll tell you what, I had people who were 18 years old, but almost 19-year-old, 20-year-old. We had a 31-year-old in our boot camp. And I just had to learn everything I could off of him. And I appreciated him. Someone else I appreciate in my life is my father, who left when I was 7. Rarely ever saw. I appreciate that dude so much. That's my dad. Everything that he did, I do the opposite. Greatest example of what not to do. I still made some of the same mistakes he did, but oh well. So when we appreciate people coming into our new organization, our political organization, our movement as we march to the right and get this country back, we got to appreciate that there are people who have probably done some organization of some things that you wouldn't like. How do we reinforce where they are now and go ahead and get them moving and helping us build our side up? I'll tell you how we do it. We encourage one another. I'll tell you what, have you ever seen somebody, they do a really good job on something, and no job is ever perfect. It's always gonna come back for revisions, especially if you're the boss. You look at this and like, "Oh, this looks great, but we need this, this, and this." Have you ever had a boss that just comes in there and just absolutely soul crushes you? You sit there and spend all this time on a report, on a project, and you know it's good. You know it's good, and the boss comes in and just completely finds the one flaw, the one error, and doesn't talk about the 77,000 good things inside this report. He talks about that one thing. Don't be a dream crusher. Don't be a dream killer. We're all better than that. That's why when people call into the show and they're going off on the right, I think you've seen me cut one person off one time. And if you ever saw Mr. Incognito video, you'll see that there's one time where I cut somebody off. Because clearly whatever trauma they have or they're going through has made them think the way they are. I think about our new dog, Eli, that we bought to the farm. He was born on our farm, went away, and came back. He had to learn some new things. He never had seen a sheep before. Well, he saw sheep. He hadn't seen a sheep in probably a year. But he was around chickens. And look, you gotta encourage good behavior. So, and again, if this is some good stuff and you're getting something out of this, let me know. But I genuinely feel like we tune into the radio every day to be entertained and hear about current events and stuff. I wanna give something more than that. I don't wanna be like every other talk show host. We're only here for a certain amount of time, and man, I don't wanna be man, I remember Gosser get on the radio and he'd just let go off and rip the Republicans a new one, then he'd rip the Democrats a new one, then he'd rip the church a new one. It's all great that you do those things, but what did you bring to the table to make the place better? and leadership is so needed right now in America from up top to down low, every level. And those of us who are good leaders and understand leadership know that we can always do something better. We can, which is why I'm sharing these 3 things with you. And the one thing that I would say too is that when you are having to correct somebody, you just don't sit there and soul crush them on the spot. Obviously, if you're in a dangerous situation, you correct and you move on, but that's understood. You know, we're sitting there at a construction job and you're supposed to be nailing something in and you're screwing off and someone tells you where to go and what to do and how to do it. You don't get your feelings hurt. You take that criticism and you hope that your boss comes back and says, "Hey, this is why I told you to do this, and this is why I'm upset that you did it that way. That doesn't make sense." I'll tell you what, the more time that you get outside of the internet, outside of the matrix, if you are so fortunate to go to a leadership conference, if you're so fortunate enough to go to one of these events, and you can find them too, and if you need help finding something to go to, message me, 601-879-5060. I'll help you out. And by the way, brother John, just while I'm thinking about this, there has not been one person who has called me or texted me asking to get help to get registered to vote. And I know you all have heard me talk about it several times. Not one. This whole fear of the Save America Act, married women not being able to go ahead and vote, it's just such a lie. The last time I was actually an election judge, there was actually a woman who came in with her married name, but had maiden name on her, and we just cast a affidavit ballot, we got it all done and fixed up, and the next time she came in, she's good to go. It's not difficult, it's not impossible. So the 3 things, we're accepting everybody, doesn't mean you accept their behavior, but you accept the person. You appreciate everybody, it doesn't mean you appreciate everything that they've gone through in the past, that they've made the wrong decision, but you appreciate where they are in life, and you encourage everybody. Some might need a little bit of correction, some might not, but you still encourage them to go forward and do the right thing. And some of y'all get upset because I'm praising Cindy Hyde-Smith for taking a leadership role on the Save America Act. It'd be great if we could get Roger Wicker to do it. Maybe we should all call him and tell him to do it. Just a thought. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We'll be right back. We do not fear the Reaper here at the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. More text coming in. Unknown texter. CIA Director William J. Casey. We'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false. Operation Mockingbird. Yep. I'm just telling you there. Ladies and gentlemen, we can sit there and we can look at all the bad stuff's going on in life, or we can look at the good stuff and focus on the good stuff that's going on in life. And I just choose to focus on the positives, and where there's something really negative, I'm going to acknowledge the negative, but I'm also going to try to put something on it in a way that can help us all learn, heal, cope, and overcome. And there is a story that I have to talk about, and I'm going to use Jackson Jambalaya. Brother Kingfish posted this, and it's called When the Past is Not Quite Dead. The Mississippi Department of Public Safety issued the following statement, and some of you have probably heard about this, but some of you may have not. And if you haven't, well, that's okay, because you're going to hear about it right now. The Mississippi Department of Public Safety has transferred to the Mississippi Department of Archives and History a 1960s era Ku Klux Klan materials, including full Klan regalia, recently discovered at DPS staff, as DPS staff prepared to move to the new headquarters. The Mississippi Highway Patrol troopers and agents with the Mississippi Department of Public Safety have worked for decades with our federal local law enforcement partners to shed light on the darkness in which groups like the Ku Klux Klan chose to operate, said Mississippi Department of Public Safety Commissioner Sean Tyndall. By preserving these artifacts and shedding light on such organizations, we help ensure that future generations are never led astray by such hate. And I think we will continue to find stuff like this in about Mississippi's dark history when it comes to the Ku Klux Klan. I don't think there's anybody out there who will acknowledge or admit to publicly saying that they support this. And there's some bad apples out there. We have to admit that. So, Andy, what are you saying? You know, it would have been really easy for someone just to find this and just throw it away, make it disappear. But that's not what Mississippi decided to do. Instead, we turned around and faced our demons. We confronted it head on. And you will see all sorts of news stories full of sensational reporting to anger the left, to anger the right. I'm not even going to say parties, because party affiliation with this gets completely discombobulated if you actually study the history of the Klan. But I am hopeful and I am prayerful that these artifacts are preserved and that we teach our kids how truly evil the Ku Klux Klan is and how evil is taught. It's not genetic. Evil is culture, not biological. Spiritually, these people are devoid of God. And it just goes to show you how the devil really works. He will corrupt anything. He will. Some news organizations published more pictures than that. And I really appreciated this anonymous comment. History is not there for you to like or dislike. It is there for you to learn from. And if it offends you, even better, because then you are less likely to repeat it. It's not yours to erase, modify, or destroy. And that's true. Which is why it just is heartbreaking as it is to find this. It's just as heartbreaking to tear down statues. We're sitting there trying to hide parts of our history and amplify others. This is an incredibly heartbreaking and very sensitive subject. which is why I chose to talk about it when I did and give it its own full segment and really bring to light that we will continue to find these artifacts. Maybe in another 5 years, we'll open up another office and there'll be something in there that we didn't realize was there. Tucked inside a small blue suitcase were documents and other items, including charters, a spiral notebook with meeting minutes, a ledger book with names and whether they paid their $3 dues, a 1964 Imperial Executive Order, and numerous pamphlets. There's also a Klan propaganda material, including a pamphlet entitled The Ugly Truth About Martin Luther King, published by United Klans of America. I don't need to go through and read it all. I know it's ugly. More importantly, each and every one of my sons knows it's ugly. My daughter knows it's ugly. My wife knows it's ugly. My neighbors know it's ugly. We're all in agreement. This is ugly, evil history. But it's Mississippi's history. And when this stuff was going around, I wasn't even born. My kids certainly weren't around. My first son was born in 1996. So at some point, we need to figure out how do we make sure that we adequately educate people, not to get them mad or fired up or get the "oh, poor woe's me" syndrome. How do we encourage each other? How do we how do you accept someone? I'm not saying that these people who did this, but how do we accept the past? It happened. Ho Do we sit there and get people so mad and angry and fired up that they can never move on? That to say that you appreciate something doesn't mean that says that you necessarily like it. I don't like anything about the Ku Klux Klan, but I appreciate the fact that we found it, and instead of hiding it away and putting it in a closet somewhere and pretending we never found it, I appreciate that it's all putting out there in the open. I wanna make sure that, I read all this. MDAH, which is the history department, whatever it's called, is grateful to Commissioner Tyndall for recognizing the historical significance of this material and transferring it to the archives, said incoming MDAH Director Barry White. These records will give researchers broader access into documentation that deepens our understanding of the Ku Klux Klan activities in Mississippi during the 1960s. Receiving a set of materials that includes both administrative records and propaganda from a local chapter of the national organization known for its secrecy is particularly significant. It's just like when we find stuff from the Nazis. And if someone gets brought out and found out about it, well, you made that decision. I, I I'm not surprised when this came through, and people were asking me, Andy, are you going to talk about it? Yeah, I'm going to talk about it. It would have been in the second segment of the hour, but CBS News got screwed up, so it got shifted over one. Blame CBS. What else is going on? I think we've covered that enough. That's such a heavy topic. So heavy. I I mean, my heart breaks when I'm hearing about stuff like that. Also, speaking of heartbreaking, abortion pills are gaining ground as a method for ending pregnancies, and opponents are responding. This is coming from the Magnolia Tribune via the Associated Propaganda. Lawmakers in states where abortion is already banned are focusing on measures intended to crack down on abortion pills. The governor of South Dakota signed such a bill this month, and lawmakers in Mississippi appear close to finalizing one. There we go, Mississippi leading the way again. Good on South Dakota, too. We love babies. We love our kids. Even if our attorney generals don't. this whole abortion issue, again, you have to love the people, hate the act of abortion. Let me say this, Mississippi, there are many women and men who are in your circles right now who will never admit it, but they either had an abortion or their spouse or their partner had an abortion. And you going out there and slinging rocks saying they're going to hell and all this other nonsense is not helping the situation. Abortion is tragic. They were just talking about spring break in Houston and all the craziness that's going on there. We have completely made inhuman the act of becoming human. How quickly has our culture completely descended into complete chaos and anarchy just over this? We'll continue to follow this. It'll be interesting to see how the different attorney generals prosecute this. I mean, if by the grace of God, Lynn Finch actually brings prosecution against somebody mailing abortion pills into Mississippi, do they go after the woman? Do they go after the people who sent her the pills? How's that going to work? These are all questions that need to be answered. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We'll be right back. Yeah, we are in America, and you are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 1039 WYAB. Where did the 2 hours go, ladies and gentlemen? Where did they go? They move fast and furious here on the Andrew Gosser Show. We covered a lot of ground today. A lot of it was upbeat and uplifting. And man, there's just some segments you just got to talk about it, and it goes to a dark place. But that's not where you end the day. That's not where you end the day. You end up on it strong, encouraging one another to go out there and learn history, to go ahead and read stuff. Brother Dan, I got your text. You know what? I'm getting new glasses this week. Well, I get the eye prescription this Thursday, and then Friday I go to get my new glasses. I'm gonna be excited about that, and hopefully I can read some more books. Because right now with these glasses, I can only read for about 20 minutes a day, and then my eyes are just so tired because these are so underpowered. Not good, not good. But the show today, I felt not only did we cover some good current events, I know I didn't talk about a lot of the Iranian stuff or the Israeli stuff, but that's going to be here tomorrow. And even if we talked about those things, what could we actually accomplish and get done? And I think that's where the program is slowly evolving to. Okay, what are the bad things that are done? What can I do about that? How can I have a positive impact on it? And a headless Iranian regime that is firing off intercontinental ballistic missiles willy-nilly, there's not too much Andrew Gosser can do on that, except say, hey, let's get our lasers deployed out there quicker. Let's make sure we have a strong enough military to go after this, because make no mistake about it, if they had the ability to strike America, they would. You just don't sit there and scream death to America for almost five decades and not believe it. That's just my opinion on it. I believe it's mostly what all of you all think about it too. And you know what's the truth? You can tell a lot about a person by how they write and how they phrase things and framed ideas. You can tell a lot about a person. Let me ask you this. Could you frame an idea that you had or a position that you believe in your opponent's point of view? Man, that might be a good topic for tomorrow. Israel from both sides. Which side do I fall on? And could I convince you of the side that I don't believe? That's something worth talking about. It's going to be a great day today. Today, the Sweet Bee goes to preach at the Rankin County Jail. Going to touch some ladies this evening, spiritually. Bring them out of that dark place and into the light. And then tomorrow is Wednesday, which means it's date day with the Sweet Bee. Oh, yeah. I'm not sure where we'll go. Maybe Mama Hamill's. That's a good place. Maybe we go to Martin's Downtown. That's a good one, too. But that's what makes life so special is our spouses, right? They do so much for us.